welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. Today, I'm really excited because we are finally talking about dialogue. And I started this whole series off by saying one of the things I like best about playwriting as a particular kind of writing is that you really are telling the entire story using nothing but dialogue. You're giving all of that information about character and setting and story and action using nothing but what characters say to each other. So today we're really going to dig in and give you some practice getting comfortable with writing dialogue. So last time we met talking about the different elements of storytelling, that was we did a lot of analysis, some note-taking, some learning, and we're going to kind of put those notebooks away and we're going to pull out blank pieces of paper and writing implements today and really go for it with some writing exercises. So I've got a lot of prompts for you guys today. I'm going to give you a lot of time to do and not so much time to think. We're really going to put the emphasis on just getting that pen to paper and scratching out some dialogue as quickly as you can. So let's get started. So we're going to get started and we're going to use those same wells of inspiration that we've been talking about throughout our series: observation, imagination, and the self. So let's start first with observation. What I want you to do is find some dialogue in the world around you. Now, it's a pandemic, so it would be socially irresponsible of me to send you out into a Starbucks to overhear some people with your tape recorder, which is what I would do, in normal times. But given the fact that you might be virtual learning from home, or you might be in a classroom, or you might be asynchronous, and you're not hanging out necessarily where a lot of people are doing dialogue, we're going to get a little creative about how we're doing this today. So you've got a couple of options here. First, let's say you're in a pod and you've got some people in your pod who might be having a conversation in the other room. I would invite you to go over here and simply notate what you're hearing them say. So that's option number one. Option number two, let's say you're in a classroom. You could have two volunteers for the classroom to have a conversation, and the rest of the classroom could write down what they hear. And this gives you some really good opportunity to take note and take notice of the ways people really do speak in life. So even I do, as I'm doing these videos, I kind of repeat myself, or I get a little herky-jerky, or I say or like. People don't necessarily speak in fluid, beautiful sentences. So I'm going to ask that you really embrace those idiosyncrasies of human language. And there, like I just did. And really, really get that onto the page as you hear it. So those are the first two samples. The third is, let's say you're just working at your computer right now. When I give the go-ahead, you can pause the video for however much time you need to either go find some people in your pod or invite some people in your classroom to volunteer, or you can go to, I'm about to give you an assignment to go to YouTube. You can go to YouTube and you can find some people in conversation and transcribe that. Now, I did a little research on the YouTube and I found there's one, if you search the apparently kid, that's a good one. Or there's another one where a Siberian husky has a temper tantrum in a bathtub and doesn't want to go outside. And both of those are going to give you some examples of some people who are not in scripted television, right? I'm going to ask that you stay away from scripted and you get some ordinary people on the street talking where you get that sort of idiosyncratic rhythm. Like, okay, apparently. Or in the case of the Siberian husky, you would have the additional challenge of writing dialogue for a non-human character. So you get something that sounds a lot like, ooh, as an example. So pause your video now. You can take as much time as you need to collect your sample of dialogue and to transcribe it onto your paper or into your computer, as the case may be. Good luck. I'm going to interrupt our work really briefly to talk just for a minute about format. Now, normally I wouldn't like to get into a conversation about format because I think it would sort of interrupt the creative flow, but just in case it's helpful for some of you who may not be used to reading plays or seeing what plays look like on the page, or some of you who like a little structure in terms of your creativity, if this is useful. I am putting an example of some of my writing up on the screen for you so you can see how I format my dialogue. You can see that I center the character's name in the middle of the page, and then I use a left justification for the actual dialogue that comes below it. And I'm going to invite you to be creative too in the way that you format. Sometimes your characters might get really loud or emphatic, and you can demonstrate that in the way that you write that on the page. You could use italics or all caps or bold or red font. You can really use the page and your creativity to give your actors, your readers, your interpreters a sense of what it is that you're hearing in your head. So I invite you to experiment and really be creative with the format. So what I'm going to ask you to do is another exercise, sort of combining observation and creativity, imagination, and go back to that dialogue that you transcribed and use the formatting. Use your imagination, use some font, some color, some different cases, italics, underline, whatever you need to do to really make it match what it is that you're hearing and what it is that you're seeing on the page. So using the page as a way to score the music and the rhythm of the dialogue. You might use ellipses, you might use dashes, you might break the line at a certain place when people take a pause. So get creative and go back to that observed, overheard dialogue and use this next 5 minutes to reformat that on the page so that it really looks like what you're hearing. Good luck. All right, this is the speed round. So for the imagination portion of today's exercises, I'm going to put a photograph up on the screen, and you will have 1 minute in which you will write dialogue from your imagination based on what you think the characters in these photographs might be saying to each other. So we're going to do this really quickly, and there's no need to turn off your video. The image will be on your screen for a full minute. You will have time to see that image and then write quickly without thinking, just doing whatever pops up in your imagination. Speed round. Scratch out some dialogue onto your paper, rattle those keys on your keyboard, and get this dialogue down on the page. So there will be 6 images, 1 minute apiece, and you will use your imagination to write what you think the characters that you see in the photographs might say to each other. Have fun. How was that? Was it fun? Was it hard? Did you get into a rhythm of being able to write without thinking too much in between? Let's stay with that same speed round idea. And for this third series of exercises, we're going to use our self. So I want you to think back to the story that you wrote last time and the different elements of that story that you identified. So this may have been in prose that you wrote the story, or you may have actually started writing scenes. I want you to take one scene of that story, one event in that story, and I want you to write it into dialogue. So tell that story, your story, in nothing but dialogue between whatever characters are in your story. And I want you to stay with that same speed round kind of writing that we did in this last round of exercises. So use 5 minutes on the clock, pause your video for 5 minutes, no more, no less, and let yourself really get that out onto the page. See if you can hear what those characters are saying and write it down quickly without thinking too much about what the final product would be. All right, good luck. Good job. That's a hard thing to do, to take a story that means something to you and to really practice getting out of your own way and not editing yourself as you're doing the writing and just really get some ideas out onto the page. Good job. So for our homework, for next time, what I'd like you to do is to continue to develop that scene. Maybe you only got a couple of lines in and you still have a whole lot more story to go. I'd like to invite you to take as much time as you would like to really start to get that on the page. Or maybe in this last exercise, you were really able to get the whole thing out on the page, but you didn't think about it a lot as you were doing it. You can use however much time you like now to sort of go back and continue to refine that. So I would invite you between the end of this video and the next time we meet to really refine and revise a scene from your play using nothing but dialogue to tell the story. Good luck, and I will see you next time.